So Thunderball was the fourth theatrically released James Bond film, and once again starred Sean Connery as the classic character. And this film came in the year 1965, and coming off the success of Goldfinger, no one really knew what to tackle on next. But in 1965, as I already said, we got Thunderball, and this film, surprisingly, isn't really that great, but it's not even really that bad. Anyway, so let's talk about it. Welcome back to my series of James Bond films, guys. I've been reviewing every single James Bond film if No Time to Die really ever comes out. I've already reviewed Dr. No, From Russia with Love, and Goldfinger. So now we're with the fourth installment, Thunderball. So as I said in the beginning of this video, I don't really love this film as much as I love Goldfinger. I think I think Dr. No and From Russia with Love are better films than Thunderball. Thunderball is always a film I respect more than I actually like. It does a lot of things to change the game of Bond and try to make this a bigger experience thematically, with the screen's a wider ratio, and there's bigger effects and there's bigger things happening, and I can respect that. But at the same time, this film just kind of feels like a dull mess of a movie to me, with a lot of things kind of just being sprinkled in there. Sean Connery in this film just kind of feels like he doesn't want to be there. This isn't like a terrible performance where it's like absolutely noticeable that he does not want to be in this character anymore. And in this film, you can show, but he's still super fun and charisma, and still has that oozing, charming, and opinion. And the action sequences, for the most part, I would say, are pretty fantastic. There are some terrible action sequences, like the final fight between Bond and the main villain. The background is just terrible. The projector in the background just looks so bad. The quick cuts. This is maybe the worst final act in any Bond film, hands down. And I find the underwater stuff to be visually appealing and thematically, but it's kind of very boring. There's the lack of music, the lack of interesting characters. Even Bond, sometimes in this film, you don't really care about as much. The villain in this film, I actually think the main villain is extremely lackluster. Largo is a very bad, not very intimidating villain, and his death is very disappointing. But Domino is actually a pretty fun side villain. Her death I find pretty interesting and vastly entertaining, with this dance sequence, and then she gets shot. It's really interesting, and a great one-liner from Bond. So I found Domino to be absolutely the best part of this film. She's fun, she's charisma, she has that sense of herself that is evil, but you can understand at times why she's doing this. The music in this film, I surprisingly really like. The Bond theme, of course, is classic. The opening pre-title sequence, the song, I would say, is about the same par as Goldfinger, and even though I said in that review I didn't love that soundtrack, I know, a big biased opinion, and I found this soundtrack to be still really good. Some really good songs in there. The film was pretty well directed and pretty well shot. There is some fun thematically shot sequences, and the film at times can be pretty enjoyable. Now let's talk about what I didn't like. First of all, this film is too long. It's 2 hours and 10 minutes, and it feels longer than that. There's so much in this film that could have been cut, so much things in this film that could have been tightened, so much things that could have been done better, and I kind of feel like with that mentality and kind of with the things that are going kind of with that in general, it doesn't really feel that awarding, especially in the final fight. The final battle, this final action scene, because of the bad director, because you don't really like this villain as much, so you're kind of just like, get it over with, and you don't dislike this villain in a good way, like, oh, he's so despicable. He's just really boring. This film has some really weird, like, off-putting moments, and not in the best way. Like, oh, so that's really off-putting in like in horror movies or thriller films, like something's off-putting in the best way. And there's some just really weird, just interestingly strange scenes, like when Bond is on this stretcher and the main villain is just trying to stretch him to death. It's besides when we got a Goldfinger, we got the classic laser torture scene, which was one of the most iconic film scenes in Bond history, and then we get to this torture scene, and it's less thematic, it's less horrible. You don't really feel the urgency of the sequence, and the way it's directed just doesn't really work. This film has a really convoluted plot, and it's super the film kind of takes that you know what's gonna happen. You know exactly what's going to happen, so you're just waiting for everyone to catch up. So instead of just going along with the characters, kind of unraveling this mystery as they go along, you're just waiting for these characters to catch up because you already know what's going on, and it's kind of not very good storytelling. The dialogue at times and the writing at times is extremely bad and really corny. This film, really nothing happens for like the first 20 to hour of this film. The underwater sequences, I said, at times are very gorgeous to look at, and the music's very nice, but they were just kind of boring. The final underwater sequence doesn't really work as well as I would hope. And the opening sequence with the jetpack is a very cool sequence. It is very interesting, but it's not really that engaging. It's not really that enthralling. After Goldfinger, it's kind of like, well, how can we make this opening the best, the highest peak that we can? So it was kind of just like, well, let's make it this sequence. The film isn't really interesting. It's not very engaging, and you just kind of feel like it's a bit of a dud film. Overall, Thunderball is a very disappointing compared to Goldfinger. I'm going to give Thunderball a C+. So those are my thoughts on the 4th James Bond film, Thunderball. What do you think of this film? I'll let you know our thoughts down in the comment section below. If you guys like this video, you guys can hit that like button and subscribe and hit that post notification bell so you guys know when I upload another video. You guys want to check out my podcast I do every other Tuesday with a friend of mine. It's called the 2 Peas in a Pod podcast. We talk movies, TV shows. It's a pretty fun time. And you guys can also check out my Instagram at General_Daniel77. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys next time. General out.